There we go. Just waiting for all my ducks to line up. Excellent. Here we go. Welcome, everyone, back to Elevation Mindset. So today, Suzanne and I are going to be bringing to you another one of our topics that goes deep into how we relate to the world and have one of these deeper conversations that isn't about 3 steps in order to get here. We will talk about some tools. We will talk about some concepts. And for us, this is a conversation. We today are going to be talking about moving from blame to ownership. So we've had a chance to have everyone introduce yourself. So thank you very much for being here on this Saturday morning and spending your time with us. And I'm curious for each of you here with an opening question. And that is there anything in your life you feel is out of control that is bothering you? Let that sit for a minute and think about that. And if something comes to you, please write that in the chat. And as we move along through what we kind of have to present to you, we would love for you to raise your hand as well. We'd love to have this be a two-way conversation, not just talking heads. So, and I see that there's a couple of people who have actually come back, and so happy to have you here. Suzanne, would you start us off, please?
Sure. And just to introduce ourselves as well, for those of you who haven't met me, my name is Suzanne Buchanan. I am a career communication specialist, and I specialize in human relations, bringing people together for powerful conversations that matter, that move the needle in our lives. I'm also a career mediator. I've worked both internationally and in the US with every culture you can probably fathom across the globe. And the one thing that matters most to me is having conversations that matter, that move us. And so Michael and I got together about 2 years ago, and we realized, especially in the midst of COVID, that no one was showing up for each other online. And in this beautiful global village that we have, we felt the need to really move the needle on conversations on personal growth and development in a way that very few others are doing. As Michael mentioned, you'll find people, talking heads, that come on and give you 5 steps to fix your life and then sign up now. And we didn't want to do that. We wanted to go deeper. We wanted to show up and talk about how these things are manifesting in our life, how we've applied tools and tactics to overcome them. And not that we're perfect and not growing, but we wanted to have a higher caliber of conversation. And we wanted you to be at the heart of it, not us. So he meant it. We love your chats. We also open it up towards the end. We want to have real engagement with you. And, if you want to stop us, as we're speaking, pop in the chat, raise your hand. We love it. So you ready, Michael?
I am. And just to introduce myself as well. So my name is Michael Dankloffs. I'm a Life Vision outfitter. So I've been working as a coach for coming up on 4 years now. And prior to that, it was all about the tools. It was about helping people overcome that challenge that they have. Primarily it was in software, and now it's actually in the wetware. It is working with people to find the solutions for their life. And what I'm super passionate about is seeing people get through those beliefs, those concepts that have actually helped them back up to this point so they can live the best version of their life. I really am aiming to refine intentionally authentic leaders and helping them become the great leaders we need in the world right now for us to be able to change the course of where we're going.
Yeah.
So,
and if any of you mentioned a chat, when you talk about these things, there are changes happening. And it's a time when many of us can feel like we're not in control. And ownership has a really interesting way of showing up, usually when we don't feel in control of things. And if the last 3 years have shown us anything, it's questioned our sense of, stability and ownership over our lives. Many of us found that we were adjusting in ways we never expected or wanted, sacrificing in ways we never expected or wanted. So this is a beautiful time to have this conversation.
So, being that this is elevation mindset, and actually the name of my business is also Elevate Your Best. So that's really what we're talking about. It's elevating from somewhere to somewhere else. And that's kind of our theme for this year. And especially when we watch media, when we actually get into conversations with people, there tends to be this concept of blame. It's someone else's fault that I'm here. It's some situation, some law, something else that's actually holding us back. So that's kind of where we want to start, is like, where are you right now? Where do you find and stop yourself, or become aware where it's more about the world is doing this to me,
Mhm.
that it's that person's fault or this situation's fault or what have you. Like, where are you offloading? Where are you actually disowning where you're at this point? Because I think that it took me a while to get into that headspace of, okay, yes, I'm where I'm at because of the choices that I made, but not until I suffered enough, I guess, because I really needed to kind of get into this space of, like, get past this idea that it was someone else's fault, that I can actually blame the world, I can blame politics, I can blame the market, I can blame the economy. And one of the key points that we want you to take away from this is that ownership is taken. It's not forced on someone. You can't force someone to own something, at least based on our definition of that, which it really is actually taking that into yourself and actually taking that on and actually saying that you are going to make this part of your own, that your space, your results, everything that you have in your life right now is based on the choices that you've been making for the last week, the last month, the last year, the last decades, potentially. But it starts with
That,
this awareness.
yeah. And I think that's a bitter pill for a lot of us. When something isn't going right, guys, it, it's so hard to come to that point where you realize, ah, I did this. I'm here because of my actions. And it may not feel like that. There are things in life we cannot control, but we can always control our reaction to it. We can always control how we allow life to impact us. And whatever position we're in when life does happen is our responsibility. And it can be a very difficult pill to swallow for so many of us. Um, and you can take it into any situation. For me, being born with a rare, potentially fatal blood disease, I cannot control how I was born, but I can control every moment on. And my decision to be proactive about my health, proactive about managing symptoms or my health trajectory, my future, that's on me. From the moment I have the authority to make choices in my life, that's all me. And so, you know, you'll find people out there who write books like Extreme Ownership. What do you think that they're trying to say? And what we miss in this conversation about ownership and responsibility, when we fail to step back, we forget we are powerful creators of our reality. You are here to create. You are here to build. And so often we react to life. We let it determine a course. So let's talk about what that looks like when we start to realize we have the power to build.
So some of the stuff that we kind of discussed, we've actually been going around and around about this. And of course, as always has been in the past, is when we pick a subject, it comes up in our life magnified 10 times. And ownership is certainly to the point that we didn't own delivering this last week. We had to push it a week in order to actually really step into this and really own it. So as Suzanne alluded before, is these aren't subjects that we're perfect at. These are not these are things that we are in the process of becoming in. And like some of the things we really kind of focused on was that ownership can actually be for the little things as well as the big things. And my tactics tend to be own one small piece, that commitment that you made to yourself to wake up before 7 o'clock, those small little things that you own about your life, and let those compound over time, because those small choices, those small areas of ownership of taking control of your life, being in control of the things that you have the ability to, one small step at a time. Suzanne's much more of the own it all at the same time, jump into the water head first and own everything. And it's one reason why we work so well together, is because we do actually provide this balance. So yes, and it is making that one small choice. And it is, as you find that you deliver for yourself, you deliver that thing you said you're going to do, it builds more confidence and also more courage to then own the next piece. Especially, I saw a couple of people that have written in the chat of they feel like their whole life is out of control. And really the only thing we have 100% control over when we look at the big scheme of things is our response to what's going on in the world. It's the only thing. I can't control what you're going to say or do. I can try to influence you. I can attempt that, but I can't. My expectations of how you act, I'm almost always going to be let down. But I can own the actions I take, the response that I do. And this can be just as simple. And so we're kind of going to flip back and forth here between the blame and the ownership side of things. So I've actually caught myself several times of walking down the road and actually seeing a piece of garbage that's there. And it's like, my mindset sometimes goes, someone else will take care of that. And also blame somebody else for leaving it there. But at the same time, as I can actually say, this is my space. This is my planet too. I can just as well clean that up, pick that up, and take care of it, because that's what I can own. I can own my actions. I can own my response to things. And that's what I'm talking about, those small little things of, am I the type of person that would just let it sit there? Or am I the person that wants to leave it better than I found it?
Yeah, I've got a great example of that. Guys, I don't think I've ever told anyone this before. True story. I have like a personal promise to myself that I leave. This is a small thing, right? But it's my little way of upholding my values, owning my values, and taking my values with me in every space I'm in. I actually make sure, this is weird, guys, but every time I use like a public toilet, I leave the bathroom in better condition than I went in. If there's toilet paper on the ground, I safely like get toilet paper and pick it up with. Or I somehow find a clean way, sanitary way to clean off the seat, or whatever I do. But I'm like, no one will come after me and see my lack of values. And it's not really about how people see me, but it's about how I want to leave the world. And I'm a trash picker upper. Like, and I've also said something to somebody who's walking ahead of me, and I'm like, they dropped something. And I'm like, oh, I think you dropped this. I know you care about this world. Like, I'm that person. I do it with love, and I mean it with love because I believe in this person and they can do better. We can do better. But how you impact the space you're in is one example of your ownership of your reality. And I know that's a micro example, but that's one of those things. How we react to life matters. The energy behind how we react matters. And I know you guys understand the power of energy, micro habits matter. I make my bed every morning. That's my ownership of my space. That's my ownership of my time. Those little micro habits. I own my energy. I'm projecting to the world. Every time an ambulance goes by, I actually kiss two fingers and I put it in the sky and I'm sending a prayer up. It probably looks like I have Tourette's or I'm doing something, but like, I don't know where these things came from. I'm sending healing energy. I'm sending prayers of someone. This is me owning my energy and space. And I know even when I show up on Zoom, I'm owning my energy and transmitting it to you because I know you feel it too. This is us owning every part of us. We are powerful creators. And when we're in that position where we feel like we're not in control, when we feel powerless, Michael and I talked about that. We came up with some pretty good list. Michael, do you see that list of the signs that you may lack or need ownership? I'd love
Absolutely.
to go through.
Yeah. So part of what we like to do is identify some of the spaces that come up that can be the counter to this. It's actually kind of part of, don't want to say formula, but close to that. But how to identify when we're in that blame versus that ownership space. So if you see yourself as perfect and others are the problem, you might be the problem because you're blaming others for everything that's going on. When you stop listening to the inner voice or that gut feeling, I know for me that was one of the key things where it was that led me to a really dark space and someplace that was really hard to come back from. But also, life to me is about lessons, the lessons that are available for us to learn. And if you're repeating the same lesson over and over and you're not moving away from it, then it may be because you aren't taking ownership of this space and actually be willing to evolve through that lesson. And the way I kind of describe this is that idea of the universe, God, the force, whatever you want to say, is giving that small little hint as a little whisper in your ear of, hey, maybe you should not do that. And then it becomes louder until it's screaming in your face. And then it's the anvil on the head. And then it's the piano. And then it's the whale. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, maybe I should listen to this by now, when you had the opportunity at the whisper. So that's been what I'm learning is listen for the whispers, not the putting down of myself, but it's that this direction will work better than that direction. Or like I said, are you the type of person to do this or to do that? And I get to then evaluate for that. But there's also this kind of flip side of ownership and responsibility. To me, ownership is something that I'm taking. Responsibility can be that as well, but tends to be something that's projected. And kind of this idea of disowning. I saw someone post in here of the neighbor's garbage that they normally help out, and this time they're like, nope, I'm just gonna let this time sit. See, there are times we can get to that space, and it comes back then to asking yourself is, what type of person do you consider yourself to be? But I also want to circle back a little bit too, because Nancy actually mentioned something in the chat is when it comes to abuse or an event that has happened to you, can you take ownership of that? I can say at least the most traumatic experience that I've had in my life was self-inflicted. And I know that that's not the story for everyone else. I know for me, that's how it showed up. You still get an opportunity to respond to that. In a situation where there is abuse, you may feel like there is no way out, especially if it is a family member or someone that's close in your family, that you have no way to get around that. There are steps you can take when you have the courage to take them, though.
Yeah,
And
at the adult
right,
level.
as an adult level. And
Yeah.
even especially nowadays with how much awareness there is, even for children, it's, as a
Yeah.
parent, it's a matter of me also empowering my children to say, this is right, this is wrong, this is who I can, this is who you can trust to report to. And actually really starting at a very young age to be able to let them know that if this doesn't feel right, then you need to let somebody know. And hopefully it's me as the parent, but if it's me that's the problem, then please find a way to change this and shift it and make it, safer for you. And it's, when you're 2 or 3, can you own your own abuse? No.
No. Yeah.
I hope that for my daughter now is going to be 21 actually in just a few days. And I hope that I've actually supported her and given her the guidance and the space to actually become the powerful woman that she's become.
Mhm.
It didn't go without any injury in the process, though. Married to the
Mhm.
wrong person who abused her, and that required me to change the environment when things became toxic. So I definitely, I don't want to let that slide either, because I get it. Were you in one of the buildings during September 11th? Was it your fault that you were there? No, that was, yes, a tragic thing that happened based on people's choices.
Right, right. But in the relationship context, when we get into a relationship, if you're in the same cycle of relationships, there's something wrong with your picker. There's something going on with your beliefs. There's something going on with your identity. There's something going on with your energy that you're attracting a repeated experience, even getting in cycles of employment that lead to toxic environments, etc. Like there are changes we can make to that space. And as I mentioned earlier, like being born with the rare, potentially fatal blood disease that affects so many areas of my body, you know, did I do anything to deserve that? No, at least not in this lifetime. But, you know, other than that, though, from every moment forward that I have agency to make decisions, I have the power to change how my life can be. So, and, I've done so. I've done so powerfully. So I don't want to understate the importance of our ownership in every context, because you've got this. I mean, and Michael, what do you think is happening when we're not taking ownership? Where do we need to look? Where do we need
Well,
to look?
what I've found whenever I'm in that space, it's sometimes it's a matter of, I think I've already stated it at least once already, is that idea of how do I identify who I am in this process. And whenever I'm not owning that space, it tends to be because there's a conflict between who I say I am versus who I believe I am. It's that concept of integrity, of what you think, say, and do being in alignment. So it's one reason for me. So ownership is certainly part of this, but for me, the word or the concept of commitment is so important and powerful. Is if I say I'm going to do something, then I do everything within my power to actually make sure that that comes to reality. And that's how the ownership component shows up for me, is, and that means that I also need to look at what I'm committing to. And sometimes it's that the fear of upsetting someone else. So we commit to doing something, even though we know we're not going to do it. But I think that there's also this underlying belief of, I don't think I can. That feeling of I'm not enough in order to be able to pull this off. And it can be tough whenever we know something that should happen. Suzanne knows that I dislike using the word should because it feels disempowering. It actually feels like it's already an out versus saying that I am going to do something versus I should do something. Or if I say that I'm going to choose to do something, two very different contexts, because the words mean quite a bit to me, because it tells me where you are around your energy, around your mindset, around your belief on whether it's going to happen or not. So I think that whenever ownership has failed for me, whenever I am disowning something, it's because I don't think I can. I don't think I'm enough, smart enough, strong enough, powerful enough, financially solvent enough, whatever that ends up being. So how does that
Yes.
show up for you, Suzanne?
Forgive me, guys, for those of you who've been with us before. Forgive me for my broken record status. It's true. Identity and beliefs, right? There's something happening when we're not owning areas of our life. Is it because we think we don't really think we deserve whatever that is? Or we feel we're not good enough in some way? Some of us fear success, getting too big. Some of us fear failure. And all of those things that hold us back, that keep us frozen in place, those are areas where we're not taking ownership. And the first stage in those, in taking ownership of those areas, for us, it's always going to be a matter of examination, of stopping in that moment, stepping back, and asking yourself, why am I not moving forward? Why am I self-sabotaging? Why did I pick up that piece of candy? Why did I call that booty call? Or whatever it is we're doing? Why do I not want to look at my taxes? Whatever it is. Figure out why. And triggers, yes. I see that mentioned in the chat. Yvonne, what are our triggers? Yes. We all have those things that set us off. For Michael, should is a trigger. He doesn't want anyone to should him. Whereas you can should me all day. I rise to calls of higher consciousness. I love being held accountable. And I know most people think that being held accountable, once you've achieved ultimate success, you have no one to report to. I seek to report to all. I am my brother's keeper in that sense. I believe we can hold each other to high standards, and that is an ultimate form of love. So, and I believe we all fall and we all are flawed. So I love those calls to higher consciousness. You can should me. You can totally should me. Let's see, what do we have in the chat? Catch myself after a certain point. Oh, yes. So what do we do now? What do we do now when we're in this place where we know we're not taking ownership of something? We know. Do you guys feel like you can identify the areas you're not taking ownership in? Let's see it in the chat. Yes or no? do you wonder about areas, or do you know, like, oh, I know there's this area that I need to take more ownership of? Type in the chat if you can.
I also wanted to bring forward kind of what what Cassandra said in here is that knee-jerk reaction of, well, it's your fault. And it can really, it becomes a practice. It becomes a skill over time, is if you're already able to identify it. And I think that that's actually one of the things that Suzanne started off just a second ago, is taking that, I've seen it described as that fearless moral inventory, is knowing whenever you've actually offloaded the responsibility of this to someone else, and then you close the gap. At one point in time, I was referred to do anger management, and
Mhm.
a lot of what they talked about in that was, it's not a matter that you don't get angry. You just put a gap between whenever you feel the emotion and when you respond to it. And the longer you can actually put between your initial internal reaction versus your physical action is when you can allow that crest of emotion to actually dissipate. And it is a practice. It is actually that catching yourself earlier and earlier each time. And in many ways, it's celebrating each time that you've actually shortened that timeline. If it was an hour the first time, and then it's 40 minutes, and then it's 20 minutes, and then it's 5, and then it's 30 seconds, you have to celebrate each of those little wins, because we are going to have those emotions come up. The Stoics talk a lot about that emotions are part of us, yes, but it's how do you respond in that particular moment based on it. One of the key vision statements for me in my emotional life is that I make choices based on my emotions and wisdom combined, because there's wisdom in the emotions. Yes, there's something that's triggered in me when that comes up, for sure. And it's like, well, let me understand that. I need to take inventory of that, of what I found in so many different situations, especially now that I've been practicing this as long as I have, is I come to this place of, what did I do to contribute to this moment? How did I actually, someone mentioned in a relationship, allowing yourself to be in that, abusive relationship. There is this sense of allowing it. Are your boundaries being violated? Are you allowing them to be? And I know, at
Mhm.
least for me, that I get more and more upset about me allowing my boundaries to be violated rather than the other person actually violating them, because I get to choose who my peers are. I get to choose who speaks into my life. That to me is a huge cornerstone of ownership, is I also own who I allow to speak into my life. And the idea of actually taking feedback or advice or even criticism from someone, for me, requires that they are living a life similar to how I want to live. And it's a matter of me taking that's part of my inventory, is that if someone is living completely different than how I want to live, why would I want to repeat what they're doing? And that, once
Yeah.
again, kind of comes down to, is I need to own my result. I need to own my outcome based on who I allow to speak in my life. And sometimes it is movies and podcasts and the radio, and sometimes it is the people that I surround myself with.
Yeah. I love the concept of the fearless moral inventory. Those times when we stand and really look at ourselves and allow ourselves to be honest with the ways that we're showing up, the ways we're not showing up, the ways we allow others to impact our space, our energy, the things that we feel our comfort moments with. Do they feed us? What does that look like? So I know Michael and I were talking about the tools to help us take greater ownership. And I'd love to learn from our people here. Guys, what has worked for you so far? What have you tried to take ownership? What has helped you so far? Some people like journaling. Some people, what have you tried? Michael, what are the ways that you kind of keep ownership?
So some of them is being, once again, surrounded by peers who I allow to hold me accountable, is being, amongst people who um, reflect back what I say that I'm about, not their own personal views about what I should be doing, but remind me of those things that I said are important to me. That's one of those tools that has helped me. And sometimes it is actually, I could say it is journaling, but it's actually writing down, this is what I did, this is how I felt, this is what came up for me, this is the story I made up about it, and this is the facts about the situation that counterbalance that was one of the tools very much used on a men's team that I was on, of being able to bring out, what are the facts, how did that make me feel, what story did I make up about it. It is one of those tools that actually gotten me back to owning my part, is because in many ways that process isn't about the person I'm talking to. Many times it's about me owning my response, my reaction, and saying it out loud or writing it down is such a different process than it rattling around in my head. It actually becomes more tangible whenever I actually verbalize it or whenever I write it down. So I think that is one of the biggest steps, is to actually bring it external, so then I can inspect it better. Is even right now, is as I'm saying this, it's like, God, dandruff, I need to do that more. I need to actually put it out here and actually make it more tangible so that I can do that. So, and then having a safe space that I can do that in, where it is actually like the accountability partners is one of that, the terms for that, or your circle of friends that are willing to sacrifice the relationship for your best outcome, or their, so that you actually get that support, because there are those friends that would much rather you stay comfortable with them. So it is a different standard of people that I found. I've got people I
Yeah.
can just hang out with and just let things slide, and won't call me out on, you said you're going to do this, is that still your intent? And that to me doesn't reinforce the ownership. So
I love that point. Guys, I always want you to have friends that don't accept you as you are, because they see who you can be. You need those people in your life that push you, that see your potential, and don't let it slide when you're not hitting it, when you fall short. And it's not that they don't accept any part of you, right? They're your friends, they love you, but they love you in a sense that they're also fostering your growth. And my friends that I've actually had the longest are the ones where we can get real, talk about how we're growing, and hold each other accountable. Like, those are my lifelong ride or dies. The people who just want to kick back and have a nice time, they tend to not stay, because I'm always growing. I'm always becoming. And that can be uncomfortable for someone. But
so the other thing that I think that is one of those tools that we need to keep in mind is, especially as we're taking more and more ownership as we are growing in our lives, that we have to be ready for the disruption that's going to come with the people and the surroundings that we have, while we're willing to take into that ownership. And it's going to be uncomfortable at first. I know that that's one of the things that someone else asked earlier was, well, how do I actually stop blaming people? Well, it comes with the practice, and my experience has been that it's hard at first. And my goal is to actually make it easier for me, but that is in the space where I grow. When we talk about kind of the physicality side of things, the first 3 reps of actually doing an exercise isn't where the growth is. It's the last 1 or 2 when it is so difficult that you're breaking over that edge. And I think that being willing to actually go to that edge and one step past it is to challenge yourself to actually catch yourself earlier, and being willing to know that other people are going to react differently because you are changing how you're approaching things. And it's not a
Yeah.
matter of, and especially in the personal growth environment, when you're surrounded with people who are maybe not on the same journey that you are, is, and I think that that's, to me, why this whole blame thing, it actually comes so much in front of me, is I'm growing like this and I'm blaming other people because they're not, because they're stuck where they are. They like their comfort zone. And I still want to grow. I still want to become a better version of me to be able to help serve more people. Can I blame them for not wanting to? I could, but does it serve them? And does it serve me? Does it serve the community that I'm in? And in my calculation, no. Instead, I can
Yeah.
actually be an example of that growth that's possible. And if they choose to join, awesome. But that's where I can't blame someone because they're stuck where they're at. I can certainly ask them questions. I can
Mm.
certainly help them discover if they're open to it. But
Mhm.
it's also it's a tough space. Being a coach is not everyone's a client. And being open to actually supporting someone where they're at versus coaching them are 2 very different perspectives. So, and that's been part of my ownership journey, is not everybody's open to my feedback. Not everybody's open to my questions. It's a matter of learning when people are ready, when people are needing that little extra push or big extra push, depending where they're at, that they have to be on board with it.
Yeah, I just wanted to pop in a little analytical tool. Michael and I are all about building in these analytical processes, these pauses, these strategic tools that you can use and take with you. I question, when has blame ever served you? And there is an emotional calculator that I use always, because some emotions are very expensive. They are, they require a lot of energy and they're very draining. Believe it or not, if you deal with chronic immune system issues, health issues, emotions can weigh heavily on your health. And so for me, I long ago learned that I have an emotional efficiency calculator. How does this emotion really serve me? How does it serve the person that I'm sharing it with or admitting it to? Because remember, we all communicate energy, we vibrate energy. This is real. So do that calculation on the emotions, those darker emotions. And if you look at those, there's so many charts out there showing the level of vibration, those lower vibration emotions, like how do they ever serve you? And how do they serve the other person? Blame and holding someone accountable are very different. They may appear the same, but one doesn't have that dark, deep level of low level, I would say, of emotional drainage. It's just very consuming. So, also, it's a really important point for us. Like when we're in that moment and it's consuming, emotions can be consuming. Ah, how's this serving me right now? Is there something else I can be feeling? So, just a little tip, because there are tools that we can build, these analytical tools that help us.
Mhm. Yep. And I noticed that, and we talked about this a little bit with shame last month as well. Both shame and blame to us are those feelings that actually don't serve us. certainly, feeling guilty that you made a wrong choice, got it, but shame is such a deep identity crisis in so many ways of, and blame also to me is, it may be half a step above shame on the energetic scale, but it's still in the minus. It's still something that's going to deplete you as you are blaming other people, where it's out there versus in here. One of the other things too that we talked about, we kind of certainly talked about the negative side of blame, that when things are bad, but you can also blame others for their success as well, and does that serve you either? They've owned their progress. Charlie Morley is someone who actually talks about dreaming and lucid dreams and the shadow, and he has two different flavors of that shadow. One is a dark shadow, one is a golden shadow. And I bring this up because a lot of what he talks about is those things about ourselves that we dislike, that we disown, tend to show up as the shadow of the people that actually show up in our lives. And those things that we actually tend to hate about others are the things that we also tend to hate about ourselves. And there's this flip side of this too, on the golden shadow side, is that those parts of our powerful self that we don't think we're good enough for, that we don't think that we have in us, tend to be the people that we admire on the outside, the people that we look up to, the people that we want to be like. But how can we see that in others unless it's in our inventory already? We have the capabilities to live into that because it is part of us. So the idea is to then integrate all of those pieces of, yes, accepting that there is this dark part of us and allowing it to integrate. And there's this golden part of us, this higher level of ourselves that we hold ourselves back from, that we have the opportunity to integrate in and take ownership of all of that. And yes, with my flaws, I also have a lot of value to bring to the world.
How are you guys doing? Yeah. It's big stuff.
It is.
Powerful creators.
So it's Charlie Morley. I'll actually put his name in the chat for you, Julie. So it took me a while to kind of embrace that idea of there's both this golden and this dark aspect of this. And I think that it was a huge mind shift for me of, oh, gotcha. I can actually live into what I admire in others. It's Simon Sinek also talks about the idea of having worthy rivals and not seeing everybody as the enemy, but it's like how your rivals are the ones that actually have you raising your standards, have you excel to the next level, because you can see what's possible by what somebody else is doing, not because they're doing it against you, but because they are doing it to help support them in their growth, and you can then learn how it shows up for you.
Yeah, nothing wrong with healthy competition, right? People won't use that word, right? The C word. People think of competitive as not very kumbaya. But let's get real. Let's get honest with that.
So one of those other things too that I want to kind of touch on as far as, tools that help us move forward. And it's something that is one of the big things that I hope that every single person that I come in contact with gets from our conversation, is that it's very easy to go on autopilot. It's very easy to just allow things to happen. But I very much want my life to be based on the intentional choices that I'm making. That it is each step that we take, each choice that we make is still a choice, even if we're choosing not to. So if you have the opportunity to make a choice in a situation, do it consciously, do it with actually seeing where you want to go. Because to me, that's also where we take ownership of our life. And that can be the food that we eat, the people that we spend time with, the places that we work, the people we work with, how you show up for that particular job, for that relationship, for that that class. Is do each of those things intentionally, because there is so much that's possible for us to do, almost to the point that there's too many choices for many of us, that you can get lost in the choices of the things to learn, the things to do, the things to experience. And in that, I'm actually was looking for it in my notes and I can't find it anymore, but it was the idea for me is I tend to be, in the past, I tend to be really overcommitted. And ownership also comes from saying no when it doesn't serve you or the other person. And the more often you can say no to something, the more powerful your yeses become. That's another way you can actually kind of step into this intentionality of, no, that doesn't serve me and where I'm going. That is counter to who I am. That is not actually where I'm going to invest my time and my energy. To the point that when most of the people who I consider successful in this world are the people who actually say no more often than they say yes, because they wait for those things that are so extraordinary or outstanding before they say yes to them. And it actually allows us to then take ownership 100% of that thing rather than giving half to it because it's doesn't really serve us.
Yeah, this is about focusing. This is about focusing on your mission, owning your space. And how do you know when it's meant for you or not? Do any of you ever have questions about that? You know, how do I know if this is my cause? We have people now driving around with Ukrainian flags on their car. They have signs out front that says, I support Ukraine in the front of their houses. So how do we choose which missions and which causes we should take ownership of? Do you have a criteria? And have you thought about setting up a criteria that helps you discern which ones are meant for you? We have limited time on this earth. We cannot say yes to everything. I do believe we can impact anything we focus on. I believe we have unlimited potential. However, time is limited. You have to keep it real. So what is it that you want, that you feel so passionately about, that you feel called to impact? And when you know what that is, when you figure out what that is what will give you the power to take complete ownership in that lane. And the other ones, you wind up saying no. It's a great cause, but you may not be called for that cause. And that's okay, because someone else is. Now, there are situations where, it requires a village. It requires all of us to care. Taking care of the planet, things like that. Right? These are micro actions we can do that just help this world be a better place. But in those big areas, this is about discernment. This is about listening to what you feel vibrates at the highest level for you, that you feel called to, so that you can confidently take ownership of and comfortably, conscientiously, with zero guilt or blame, say no to the rest. It's going to make you infinitely more powerful and effective in that space. You'll be focused and you will know, this is my domain. Does that make sense? Beautiful. So,
Thank you, everyone, for being here. We do like opening this up, and there's been some great engagement in the chat.
Yeah, you
And
guys are awesome.
would like to invite anyone who wants to share some of their ideas here or questions that you have to ask. Please go ahead and raise your hand. So if you actually look on the bottom bar under reactions, you can actually hit raise hand. We'd love to have you come up and actually share or ask questions with us.
And if you can't find that bar, raise your real hand and wave it in the air like you just don't care. We got you. We love it. What's an area that you're focusing on building ownership in? What's an area where you're ready to up-level your game, raise your game?
Go ahead, Julie.
I couldn't find. Am I all right to talk? Sorry.
Please.
So
Yes.
yeah, I couldn't find the thing to raise my hand. But yeah, for me, I'm the one who talked about. I often feel like I'm not in control of my life, and your guys' words help me to look to what is the belief that's underneath that, and it's the belief that I can't control my life. And Michael, your words about when that you disown when you feel like you can't do something, that really hit the nail on the head for me. And I do know I am waking up to and also healing from childhood trauma. And I know that it was a situation with my parent, my caregiver. Sorry, I think my son's a bit loud in the background. Hold on.
It's quite all right.
Yeah, I know that in my childhood, my parent, it's just, they were very self-focused / narcissistic. So it's what my experience didn't matter. And I was raised in I don't even know how to say, I was raised in survival mode, basically, because my mother was, to put it bluntly, was like an emotional terrorist. I was constantly walking on eggshells. I was raised by a single mother. And so I've learned through a bit of mental health counseling that I was super scanning. I spent my childhood super scanning. So I was literally in survival mode the whole time. So I can appreciate, I never got the chance, and I certainly never experienced my mother empowering me, like teaching me how to show up in life. And so I lacked that core, knowledge that I can do things. And as a grown up, I've come to realize she gets a lot of satisfaction from being able to guide my life and be the one steering me. So I can appreciate that. What I've grown up believing I'm powerless, that I can't do stuff, and that I can't trust myself, most importantly. So I'm left with, I have to look outside then, and I suppose for a while it was my mother I looked to. I've ended that relationship. I went on a spiritual journey. So then it became God, because he's all powerful, right? So he's got a divine plan for my life. So he has to tell me what to do. But even he's like, no, you've got to figure out, I've given you insight about who you truly are. Can you, make a decision? I've put it all in you, just work it out. So, and that's why I said, Suzanne, at the end just now, that thank you for everything you said, because it's like you were personally challenging me to really take ownership of my mission. And it's been challenging because I haven't been trusting myself. I'm on a journey to learn how to do that. But yeah, everything you guys have said, I just wanted to acknowledge it has been just so absolutely wonderful. And I'm leaving now with tips, pointers, empowerment, and lots of great information, as well as that book by Charlie Morley. It looks absolutely beautiful. I can't wait to get a hold of a copy, to change and take ownership. And actually, at this point, I'm going to choose to take Michael's advice and not try and dive in at the deep end, but in fact, choose one small step, because I do get overwhelmed, although I have made a decision recently that, it doesn't pay to be overwhelmed, right? So we're not doing that anymore. But It doesn't. It really doesn't. And I want to achieve a lot in my life. And you're so right, Suzanne. We only have a limited amount of time in this lifetime. And the clearer I can get about what it truly is for me, the better. So no, I just want to say a massive thank you to you all. It's been such a blessing, basically.
Thank you for your beautiful presence and showing up and standing up and speaking up and growing in front of us. Like, that's beautiful. And like, I see you talking about lacking capacity. I don't see any of it. So just remember how you see yourself, right?
Yeah,
Is also a
yeah,
function of programming. You've got
yeah.
this.
Oh, bless you. Thank you. And I'll choose to believe that, because I think that's another thing that did cross my mind as the session was going on, that I think I have the belief that I can't do it and I can't control my life, and that I've just been running it on repeat, rather than putting it aside and saying, actually, you
That's
can,
right.
even if it's just a small part, I can, and then work on that, which I think I need to do from now on.
Everyone pay attention. She said, I choose to believe that. I will choose to believe that. We choose our beliefs daily, whether we realize it or not. Again, Michael warned us about being on autopilot. Examine your beliefs. Examine your beliefs. We choose what we believe, and we don't always believe things that are true. She believed she couldn't. That's not true. So examine your beliefs and choose your beliefs carefully. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you, guys.
Mm-hmm.
Yvonne, did you have something to share with us?
Yeah.
Hi.
It's funny. It's just kind of what I was thinking, just fed off of Julie, and I was going to say about limiting beliefs, because that's kind of where I'm focused now. And I mean, they're limiting and they're beliefs, so neither are true. But as I peel away the layers of the onion, because it's been 5 years now since I left everything. Things keep popping up because I'm still not where I want to be. I'm still not where I want to be. And I'm diving deeper, deeper and deeper. And even yesterday, I realized something, and I had good parents, but I realize now they had limiting beliefs, and they passed things right on to me. And instead of now blaming, which I may have done a while ago, like, I can't believe you taught me that. Now I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Okay, what can I do about it? So it's changing the way I perceive it. Almost like I love games and puzzles. So it's like almost like a puzzle, like, where did that come from? And my mom's 80, she was amazing. And the other day I realized that maybe my lack of self-confidence and lack of moving forward is because I was always compared. Well, if your mom could do it with 4 kids, you can do it when you're 20 and have no responsibility. All of that kind of stuff was fed into me. And then I realized this week actually was my mom's almost 80 and she's still trying to please everybody. She's still looking for outside, I can't think of the word right now, but not reassurance, but everyone probably knows what I'm talking about. Just people to say, oh, you're so good at this, or oh, that's nice. Right. But you can see she's seeking it. Oh, that's not very nice. And I'm thinking, okay, this is not going to serve me. So even though, and then I realized she was the only white sheep in the family. So she just spent her entire life trying to prove that she was not them. And I think she's still trying to do that. It does not leave you unless you heal it. And we can, like you say, replace any belief. They're just beliefs. So that is just so important. But I find finding where they, and that's by triggers. The trigger came, you're like, okay, there's a limiting belief here. And then I delve into it. So when I look at it as a game almost, without the crazy emotion, because when I go ballistic, I'm like, okay, this is about me. And the behavior of that other person is about them and their beliefs, and they need to do their work. So when I left my kid's dad, it was really hard. Even years later, I'm still the bad one in his mind. But then I realized he's just not doing his healing, and it's nothing to do with me. And changing the belief to my fault, to his fault, to his stuff is his stuff and my stuff is my stuff. And we're both on a journey. We both have our own higher power. We both have our own growth. We both have our own process. And thank you for my children. And you do you. And just letting it go, because there's nothing I could do in a million years, just like Julie. She could never convince her mom that anything. I could never convince him of anything. And it's not my responsibility or job to convince either. And just realizing that, but it's with anybody, I can have a great conversation with someone with a different point of view, and it may alter my belief a little bit. Politicians are great because they're fighting both sides on the extreme, and the balance is somewhere in between usually, but it's good to hear both sides and then to create what I actually feel inside. But just knowing that my path is my path, and why I'm there is why I'm there, and everybody has their own traumas, and it's not my responsibility, it's theirs. That was a huge moment for me, realizing that.
Yep. And it comes a lot with, as you take ownership, you're showing by example how it can be done without the expectation that that is how they need to do it. So it is that balance of, I'm doing my work. Now it's your turn. I'm doing my work. It's about me evolving myself. And
there is no, it's your turn.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing. I'm doing my work, but you can't even tell them that they have to do theirs. And it comes to judgment. Like I posted something, but like I get judged on how I raise my kids. I'm an old mom. I was almost 40 when I had them. And I'm I don't understand this helicopter parenting thing. And my parents get mad because I leave my teenager if I have to go out of town. And they're like, oh, you shouldn't. I'm like, they've got food, they've got money, they've got FaceTime, they've got a schedule. Like, and the judgment is unbelievable. But I don't have to explain myself anymore. I'm like, I know my child. I know my child. I know what she's capable of, and I end it, because it could go into a non-ending debate. And then the whole family sits there, blah, 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 blah. And I've had to let that go because that's their beliefs from the same parents, right? So that was a challenging one, to not have to explain myself when I'm being judged. If I inside feel that I know that I'm doing that's a good place for me.
Absolutely. And it can be so hard to stay firm in your beliefs when it's what's serving you and your environment, when you have so much criticism from the outside. I get it. So thank you for being willing to do that work. And I acknowledge you for actually being able to step away out of that situation, and knowing that the only person you can help change, especially now that you have a teenager, you're not going to change a darn thing about a teenager at this point, that you kind of that seed has been planted, but that you're actually showing by example. And the one piece that we've talked about here a couple times in the past is the Native Americans believe that when you heal yourself, you heal up to 7 generations on either side, 7 generations forward and 7 generations back. So even by doing your own healing energetically, you will have an impact on your kids and your parents and beyond. So, and it's one thing that I tell my wife all the time is, thank you for doing the work that you are, because it will impact your kids, your parents, and everyone. So, and having the courage to do that work, especially from what I observe of people now, is there's not many people who are willing to do that work. So thank you for stepping up for that. It's powerful.
Yeah. That's what we love about all of you here. You are the ones who have said, yes, I will take this challenge. I will do this work. Beautiful. Anyone else want to share?
Go ahead, Ken.
I was just planning on just listening, which I've been doing intently and enjoying beyond words. Just your first words today, I said, oh my God, I'm in the right place. You guys are wonderful. And I'm so happy to be with each and every one of you. We covered a lot of great points. And a lot of it comes down to what I think is inspiration. Like I wrote in the chat, inspirations to breathe life into. And that's what this entire hour has been about. You two are a great team. I've loved today. I look forward to our next time. I'm not sure when that's going to be, how often we do that, but
Once a month.
Is it once a month? It's not enough.
Once a month, guys.
Not enough. But it's uplifting. It's supportive. It's positive, and it's such a wonderful feeling. It touches us all, and for me personally, it inspires me. I've been I can't tell you how many pages I've written. It's a lot. But one thing you were talking about, just if I want to just narrow it down and keep this brief, journaling. What happens sometimes, it's really interesting when you talk about, you use the term to have the thoughts rattling in your head. There are times when I sit down to journal just to get things out, and it's page after page after page after page after page. I said, oh my God, where's this coming from? So it's all within, and it was coming out. And it was without thought. It was just a flow. Like you keep saying, it's all about the energy. And the other thing too is what I call mass. So many people have these thoughts in their heads. Everything we've been talking about, they just. I wrote down the word. How people automatically believe something that they hear or things like that, their environment, so on and so forth. With social media today, I believe so many people are like automatons.
They allow themselves to be programmed and conditioned by what they see, when it's got to be from your experience. And that's the way that I've best learned, is this is the perfect way to do it all the time for you. My experience has always been slightly different, so I get it. Thank you, Ken, for that.
Yeah. No, thank you guys. I'll stop there to let others talk, but really appreciate you, Michael and Suzanne and Julie, Charmaine, all of you, and love to you guys. And I'll carry this for the month, and we'll grow on it, and we'll look forward to next time.
You next month. Actually, the end of this month.
No fooling.
Yes. So, and just so you're aware, for those people who are here, if this is your first time joining us, or even if it's one of the multiple times you've been here, there is a recording of our past sessions on the LifeBook platform as well.
Oh,
so
good.
If you search for Elevation Mindset, so hashtag Elevation Mindset, that's a tag that I put on all of those. And I'd say 90% of our sessions have been recorded in the past. So if that's something that you want to connect with, and I've got most of those up on YouTube. So in fact, that's one of the things I want to drop in the chat here.
Okay, yeah, I want to find it.
We do have a page as well that is actually for Elevation Mindset that you can subscribe to our newsletter. We'll be sending out information about our next sessions as we go forward. And I can also put a link to the playlist for our Elevation Mindset Summits as well in the chat if you're interested in that.
We'll be here on the 29th, Saturday morning, right? That's about 4 weeks from now. And same time, same channel. You'll see it in the LifeBook community. We also advertise on Eventbrite and my social media as well. So anywhere you want to find us, we're always happy to connect.
Can I add one more thing? That's great. I'm going to look for those. I want to find those. I'm going to look for those and look forward to it. Can I just put in a request? And that is, if you could take a look at my Instagram, which is Ken Packer 18. Today is April 1st, April Fool's Day. And I wrote about that. And I love to write. I'm a former publisher and executive editor, and it's all about love. It's all about unconditional love and energy. And so that's why I've really resonated with today so much. But
Awesome.
I'm Ken Packer, 18. Please read and let me hear from you and enjoy.
Okay, thanks, Ken.
Beautiful,
Love
Ken.
to you guys.
And you have it handy. Do you want to put it in the chat?
What's
The
that?
link?
The link? Yes, sure. I'll be glad to. Yeah,
Thank you.
enjoy. And there might be others too. Look at those and enjoy, and I'd love to keep in touch.
Sounds good.
Thank
So Cassandra, did you have something to share with us?
Yeah, so I kind of have been on an ownership journey for the last year or so. I kind of was rather stuck most of my life, and I got diagnosed with ADHD and autism recently, and it kind of really reframed my entire life and so many of my habits and experiences. And through that, kind of first it was basically understanding how that impacted my life, but then it became about actually taking ownership in the fact that some of my symptoms had created the behaviors and situations and problems that I've been blaming so many people my whole life with. And so like the last year, I've spent a lot of time really working on taking accountability for where I've got to in my life, and how I've kind of, gotten places. And I think kind of coming into this, I just kind of was curious about what, was going to be said or whatnot. And I think there was a couple points that kind of stuck out to me. And it was about that whole idea of owning your kind of mission. And I kind of almost saw that as well as about an extension of owning my identity, because I think that's something that I've allowed kind of other people to define for me, like my entire life. I've kind of, being different, I've kind of learned very quickly that I had to modify myself in pretty much every single way to be able to fit in and survive in a world that's not really built for me. And eventually it kind of, those things became who I was, even though I kind of always knew deep down that it really wasn't. And so it's kind of been more recently unpacking that. But I think that kind of idea of owning my mission, because my mission is an extension of my identity. I am an artist and I love to help people as well. I've kind of been toying with the idea of coaching for a long time, but I think I've kind of always been like, no, who would hire me? And, but these are things that really I have an extreme passion about, and I've kind of held myself back from them because of this identity that other people have given me. And so I think that idea of owning my identity really helps to enable me to own that mission that I have, which is to help other people and to create beautiful things for the world. So that was one thing that I kind of took away from this. And I think also another thing is the point that was made about blame and holding someone accountable are very different. And it has to do with that emotional context. My husband is, we've had a rocky relationship most of our lives. It's very up and down because he's also autistic. And so a lot of our personalities, like even though we're both autistic, we have very opposite kind of characteristics. And so we clash a lot of times due to kind of our traumas from life, and so like a lot of times it's turned into me blaming him for things and kind of treating him in that blaming manner, very emotionally, and kind of almost attacking him instead of actually coming at him with love and encouraging him to hold himself accountable for certain behaviors and being like, look, I can completely understand where you're coming from this, given your experience, but how you've reacted isn't okay. I still love you, but I think maybe you might want to look at this and see how you can kind of, look at things and change things, make that kind of progress yourself, and then give him the space to do that instead of constantly reminding him and blaming him and having that emotional, well, it's your fault and blah, 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 and just basically being a butthole to him. It doesn't really encourage him to have that growth in himself if I'm constantly just attacking him all the time with that emotional blame and actually not encouraging him to hold himself accountable in a supportive way. So those were a couple things that I kind of took away from that.
It's a very powerful question to ask when we have partners in our lives of how do I help create space for my partner to grow into the best person they can be? How do I foster a nourishing environment for their growth while still tending to my own?
Yeah.
Especially in the context when we both have pain, we both have healing, we're both in this place. And that is a constant process in relationships that we should always be evaluating, because we are in it, right? So it's hard to emotionally distance yourself from it, but sometimes, that's going to look differently. You know, if we show up and say, well, here's an area you need to go and think about your growth in, that's
It's not helpful.
right.
It immediately puts that guard up for them. The wall goes straight up, and then any chance they have changing is gone.
Yep.
That's right. Go ahead, Michael.
If I can speak a little bit to this as well, is what I found is a romantic relationship, though there is some amount of accountability, it's a very different flavor. There's a lot more emotions that are involved and a lot more expectation in a romantic relationship versus an accountability group that's all about holding someone accountable. It's a very different flavor. Not to say that one is better than the other, but it's a different approach. The other thing that I wanted to speak to about what you said is you had talked about kind of your traumas, and you now have a label for why you've done a lot of the things that you've done. I know for me that ADHD shows up very different than for other people, but I also hold it in a different context. I see it as a superpower rather than as a limitation. Is I can actually shift between several different things very, very quickly. When other people are still stuck on step 1, I'm already on step 7 because I'm able to shift between those things so quickly. So it still is about the story you talk about yourself. So be very conscious of that, because it can actually have a huge impact on how you show up.
Yeah, definitely. That reframing has been a big thing, because I know when I first got the diagnoses, it was very much taking in all the negative views and opinions and kind of stereotypes that everybody has of those two things, and thinking, oh my God, what are people going to think of me? And like trying to avoid it. And then I started to reframe, and thank God for TikTok. Like, there's so many amazing people out there that really highlighted the benefits and kind of helped me start that reframing, and then kind of going that deep dive and realizing that actually there are so many things that I can take ownership of and be like, this is who I am, and this is why I'm proud of being who I am. If you don't like it, lump it.
Well, and all the people who actually think are going to judge you now that you have the diagnosis, they judged you a long time ago, and it doesn't really matter because you're still going to show up as who you are. You just now understand it better. So
exactly,
people who are going to accept you and care about you and love you are going to love you as you are, and still hope for your growth without it being about you need to.
Very true. Thank you guys both for this. This has been really great. Appreciate it. And I appreciate everybody's shares. They've been really insightful. And I think learning from other people and how they interpret information is always so great. So thanks, everybody.
Absolutely.
Oh, thank you for coming. We love you guys. And really, your engagement, the chat was so powerful. So thank you for sharing and opening yourselves with us, as we always strive to be that open with you. I hope you could feel that as well. And I can't wait to see you guys again. I hope to see you at the end of the month. If you're available on Saturday, I think it's the 31st. What is it? The 29th, 31st? What is it?
Right.
Let's see. 29th, guys. Saturday the 29th. So.
Yep. And just to drop a little hint about what we're going to be talking about. So it was from blame to ownership today. It's from apathy to feeling, is what we're going to be talking about next, because we've seen so many people who come to this place of, well, I don't care anymore. And that those feelings are important guideposts for us to learn about what's showing up for us, and we get to choose how do we respond and react to it. So we hope to see you there, and definitely look for us on the LifeBook platform, or actually sign up for our newsletter. We'd love to have you as part of our community and to help kind of keep in touch with you as this year unfolds. this is the early part of our third year of doing this. So we've got 2 years of experience prior to this, and it's just gotten better and better each time we actually engage with the community, because that's really what we enjoy doing. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you guys. Have a beautiful weekend.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good.
Likewise. Bye.
Bye now.
Bye.
Thank you guys so much. It's wonderful.
Thank you.
Much love. Have a wonderful month.